You've probably heard the phrase, as above, so below. At first glance, it sounds like something you'd see printed on a mystical hoodie, maybe quoted in a fantasy novel or stitched on an Instagram post. But here's what most people don't realize. This phrase is not just a poetic saying. It's a code, a law, a principle that, whether you know it or not, is operating behind the scenes of your life right now. And it was never meant to be a casual phrase. It was meant to be a doorway, a kind of password into the very structure of reality. This is why we need to go back thousands of years to a figure who is both legendary and elusive, Thoth. In Egyptian wisdom, Thoth was the god of writing, of language, of magic, of hidden knowledge. In the Greek tradition, he became Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great. Some scholars argue that Hermes was not one man, but a symbolic figure representing a lineage of teachers who carried this wisdom. But whoever he was, his fingerprints are all over a mysterious text called the Emerald Tablet. The Emerald Tablet isn't long. In fact, you can read its entire content in a few minutes. And yet, it's one of the most quoted and least understood works in human history. Philosophers, alchemists, scientists, and mystics have studied it for centuries, but its core message remains slippery. That's not by accident. Hermes, or Thoth, knew that if he left behind a 1,000-page textbook explaining the mechanics of the universe, people would reduce it to dogma. They'd memorize the words, argue over translations, build rigid belief systems around it, and miss the actual point. Instead, he left a set of brief, almost cryptic sentences. Among them, the most famous, that which is above is like to that which is below, and that which is below is like to that which is above. At first glance, it looks simple, almost too simple. But what if this isn't just a statement about the sky and the earth, heaven and humanity, spirit and matter? What if it's a formula? What if it's a precise instruction that shows you how to consciously create your reality, rather than being dragged through it on autopilot? That's the hidden weight of these words, and it's why I call it a code. Now let's pause and ask, why hide this knowledge? If this principle is the very backbone of creation, why not just tell humanity plainly? The answer is paradoxical, but makes perfect sense once you see it. The law itself is neutral. It's not good or bad. It doesn't play favorites. It simply reflects, like a mirror. So if someone full of wisdom uses it, they can create beauty, healing, abundance. But if someone blinded by greed or hatred uses it, they can amplify destruction. That's why this truth was hidden in plain sight, accessible to the ones ready to see, invisible to the ones who aren't. Think of the phrase again, as above, so below. At its simplest, it tells you that reality works in correspondences. The invisible patterns reflect in the visible world. The micro reflects the macro. Your inner life reflects into your outer circumstances, and vice versa. So if your outer world feels chaotic, fragmented, frustrating, there's a mirror pointing back to something inside you that vibrates with the same frequency. Change one, and you inevitably change the other. This is exactly why the tablet is not moralistic. It doesn't tell you be good or don't sin. Instead, it says, this is how reality works. You choose how to interact with it. That's the radical part. Unlike religious commandments, the tablet gives no judgment. It simply states the mechanics like gravity. Gravity doesn't punish or reward, it just pulls. In the same way, the law of correspondence, as above, so below, doesn't care if you use it wisely or unwisely. It simply reflects back whatever you're projecting. Now, here's where it gets more interesting. The Emerald Tablet is tiny. You could scratch its words onto a single page. But those few lines launched entire fields of study. Alchemy, for example, wasn't originally about turning lead into gold. That was a metaphor for inner transformation, taking the dense, heavy lead of human limitation and refining it into the gold of spiritual mastery. And central to this process was the recognition that the inner world and outer world correspond. Transform the inner base metal, and the outer world reflects that refinement. This is the same principle you see echoed centuries later in mystical Christianity, in Kabbalah, in Sufism, in Vedantic philosophy. It's as if the Emerald Tablet was a seed, and every tradition that came after watered it in their own cultural soil. And yet, at the core, it's all the same message. But let's bring this down to earth, because here's the real challenge. If this law is always working, that means right now your life is reflecting your inner state. Your relationships, your finances, your health, your opportunities, they're mirrors. And that's both liberating and terrifying, because it means you're not a victim of random circumstances. But it also means you can't hide from your own vibration. Ever noticed how someone can leave one toxic relationship, swear they'll never repeat that mistake, only to find themselves in another relationship with the same dynamics, just a different face? That's as above, so below. The unresolved pattern inside continues to project outward until it's transformed. The outer situation is just a reflection, trying to show you the inner frequency you've been carrying all along. And the opposite is true too. Someone can shift internally, raise their self-worth, cultivate inner peace, practice gratitude, and suddenly their outer life begins to magically change. But it's not magic. It's mechanics. The tablet wasn't exaggerating. The invisible and the visible are linked by correspondence. This is also why Hermes didn't write volumes of explanation, because you can't learn this in the way you memorize trivia. You have to experience it. You have to see the pattern playing out in your own life. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, there's a detail here that deserves attention. Hermes wasn't just Egyptian. He wasn't just Greek. He was both and neither. The fusion of Thoth and Hermes represents the meeting of two massive traditions, Egyptian mysticism and Greek philosophy. Think about how rare that is. Cultures separated by geography and language still found a way to speak about the same truth. It's as if Hermes himself was a bridge, not just between cultures, but between worlds, between the human and the divine, between what we can see and what we can't. That's why the Emerald Tablet endures. Not because it's long or complicated, but because it's condensed truth. It's like pure concentrate. A single sip, and you taste the entire law of creation. But to actually live it, that's the work of a lifetime. And here's the most fascinating part. Hermes didn't need to persuade anyone. The tablet doesn't argue. It doesn't preach. It simply says, this is how things work. Notice it, and use it if you're ready. That's it. The rest is up to you. So the first step in unlocking the hidden truth of as above, so below, is to realize it's not optional. It's not a belief system you can choose to adopt or reject. Just like gravity, it's always operating. You don't have to believe in gravity for it to pull you down. You don't have to believe in correspondence for your inner world to be reflected in your outer life. The only choice you get is whether you engage consciously with it or let it run on autopilot. If you ignore it, you'll keep bumping into the same problems, repeating the same cycles, feeling like life is unfair. If you start working with it, you begin to realize the code is already written inside you. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions are programming reality every day, whether you're aware of it or not. And this is where Thoth's warning comes into play. He didn't just leave behind words. He left behind challenge. To step out of unconscious living, to stop outsourcing your power to chance, luck, or external authorities, and to start noticing the mirror of your life. Because when you do, reality itself starts to shift. The hidden truth is that this isn't a poetic idea. It's a user manual. It's as practical as physics. But most people never use it. They repeat the phrase, maybe quote it, but don't live by it. And so the mirror keeps reflecting confusion. But you're already ahead, because you're here listening, beginning to understand that as above, so below is not just history. It's your life right now. And once you accept that, once you start experimenting with it consciously, you've stepped onto the same path Hermes once walked. And the path is only just beginning. Because while the Emerald Tablet is one of the earliest sources, it's not the only one. This law echoes across the globe. Cultures separated by oceans and centuries still found the same truth, that the invisible reflects into the visible, the inner into the outer. How could that be, unless they were all observing the same universal law? If the Emerald Tablet were just a curious artifact from Egypt, you might dismiss it as one culture's attempt to make sense of the universe. But the truly astonishing thing is that this principle, as above, so below, shows up everywhere. Across continents, across centuries, across completely different languages and traditions, the same truth keeps resurfacing. And here's the kicker. These cultures often had no direct contact with one another. There was no internet, no airplanes, no global forums. Yet somehow, sages in India, philosophers in Greece, mystics in Israel, and priests in Egypt were all pointing at the same law. That's not coincidence. That's universality. So let's step back and imagine this for a moment. It's thousands of years ago. In ancient India, long before the time of Plato or Socrates, the Vedic sages were sitting beneath the stars, composing hymns that would become part of the Rig Veda. They weren't just singing praises. They were tuning into reality, meditating so deeply that they began to notice something subtle. The human self and the cosmic order were not separate. They summed it up in a simple phrase, Tat Tvam Asi, you are that. What is that? The all, the entire cosmos, the infinite reality underlying all appearances. Think about that. These sages weren't just offering poetry. They were saying, you are not a fragment in a random universe. You are the universe, expressing itself through a human body and mind. In other words, what is above, the cosmic order, is directly mirrored below, in you. Sound familiar? It's the same essence as the Emerald Tablet, expressed in Sanskrit thousands of miles away. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Thoth was teaching the principle of correspondence. The heavens above and the earth below are connected. Priests aligned temples with the stars, not just for decoration, but because they believed that aligning human structures with celestial patterns allowed divine order to flow more freely into earthly life. If above was the stars and below was the Nile Valley, then harmony between the two created prosperity. Again, the same code. Now let's travel west to Greece. Enter Plato. He told the famous story of a cave. Humans, chained since birth, watch shadows flicker on a wall, believing that's all reality is. But when one person escapes and sees the real world outside, they realize the shadows were mere reflections. This is pure correspondence. The visible is a copy of the invisible. The world we take as solid is just a projection of deeper, unseen forms. Or, to put it Hermes' way, what is below is a reflection of what is above. Then, in Jewish mysticism, we find the Kabbalah with its intricate tree of life. Look at it closely and you'll see it's not just a random symbol. Each sphere represents a layer of existence, from the most divine and abstract at the top to the most physical and dense at the bottom. And the pathways between the spheres, they're invisible channels linking all levels of being. In other words, everything below in the material world is a reflection of something above in the spiritual realms. And here's what should make you pause. These cultures were separated. Ancient India and ancient Israel weren't exactly swapping notes. Greece didn't borrow its cave allegory from Egyptian priests. At least, not directly. And yet, they were all describing the same thing. Why? Because they weren't inventing it. They were observing it. Just like multiple scientists can look at the same natural phenomenon and describe it in different languages, these traditions were seeing the same universal law and putting it into their own words. This is why the phrase, as above, so below, is more than history. It's evidence. Evidence that consciousness itself, when it looks deeply enough, sees the same structure of reality no matter the cultural lens. And the structure is correspondence. But let's go even further. Because once you recognize this universality, you realize something breathtaking. Humanity has always known this law. It's not an exclusive secret. It's a recurring discovery. Like gravity, people in different places have felt it, tested it, and described it. The tragedy is that over time, the purity of the message gets lost in translation. Instead of living it, people turn it into ritual, dogma, or abstract philosophy. They worship the symbol instead of applying the principle. Now picture this. A Vedic sage in India says, "You are that." A Kabbalist rabbi in Jerusalem meditates on the tree of life. A philosopher in Athens speaks of shadows and higher forms. A priest in Egypt engraves a tablet with "as above, so below." None of them ever met. None of them spoke the same tongue. Yet if you put them in a room, they would nod in recognition. Because beneath their cultural words, they're all pointing to the same truth. The visible reflects the invisible. Let's bring this into modern terms. Imagine you're looking into a mirror. You see your reflection. Now imagine trying to change your reflection by smudging the glass, yelling at it, or painting over it. Doesn't work, right? The reflection only changes if you change. That's the exact logic of "as above, so below." The below, your outer circumstances, changes only when the above, your inner state, changes. And this is what these ancient traditions are trying to tell us in their own symbolic ways. In India, you're the cosmos. In Greece, the visible is a shadow of the invisible. In Egypt, heaven and earth correspond. In Israel, the spiritual realms shape the physical. All different mirrors of the same law. And now, pause for a second. Ask yourself, if all these cultures stumbled upon the same truth, what does that say about reality itself? It says this isn't subjective. It's objective. It's not just a cultural belief. It's a universal law. And if it's universal, that means it's operating in your life whether you acknowledge it or not. That's the wake-up call. You don't get to opt out. You can't say, "Well, I don't really believe in correspondence." It doesn't matter. The law is still operating. Just like you can't say, "I don't believe in electricity," while flipping on a light switch. The current flows whether you believe in it or not. The only difference is, do you know how to use it? Or are you being used by it unconsciously? This is why understanding the universality of the law is so powerful. Because it means you're not learning something new. You're remembering something humanity has always known. You're reawakening to a principle that has echoed through temples, caves, forests, and sacred texts for thousands of years. And the real beauty? Once you accept this, life stops looking random. The chaos starts making sense. Because now, when you face a challenge, you don't just ask, "Why is this happening to me?" You ask, "What inside me is this reflecting?" That shift changes everything. Suddenly, life isn't punishing you. It's teaching you. Every obstacle is a mirror. Every blessing is a mirror. The law is always reflecting. So, where do we go from here? If this law is so universal, so obvious once you see it, then why don't most people live by it? Why does the modern world feel so disconnected, so random, so blind to the correspondence? The answer is simple: distraction. While ancient sages looked to the stars, the trees, the stillness of meditation, we look at our phones. We chase after external noise, forgetting the inner field that creates it all. And yet, the law is still there. In fact, you've seen it your entire life. Every time you look at the sky, every time you watch a plant grow, every time you notice patterns in nature, the code isn't just written in old tablets or mystical diagrams. It's written into creation itself. And that's where we're heading next. Because if ancient texts and traditions weren't enough to convince you, maybe the living world around you will. The spirals of seashells, the branching of trees, the whirling arms of galaxies, the very structure of your lungs. They all repeat the same pattern. Nature doesn't lie. It silently repeats the law of correspondence in plain sight, waiting for you to notice. If you've ever walked on the beach, picked up a seashell, and admired the spiral pattern that curls inward with such precision, you were staring at the code. If you've ever stood in awe of a thunderstorm, watching lightning branch across the sky like a glowing tree, you were staring at the code. If you've ever looked at the veins of a leaf, then glanced at a river delta from an airplane window, noticing how they look eerily similar, you were staring at the code. The phrase "as above, so below" isn't only written on the emerald tablet. It's written in nature itself, etched into every living and non-living structure around you. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is where the law of correspondence becomes more than philosophy. This is where it becomes science. The ancients may not have had telescopes or particle accelerators, but they had eyes. They had intuition. and they noticed patterns. What they called divine order, we now call mathematics. What they referred to as harmony between heaven and earth, we might call fractals, symmetry, or the golden ratio. But underneath the different labels is the same reality. Nature is repeating itself across scales. Take the golden ratio, also known as phi, approximately 1.618. This number is everywhere. It shows up in the spirals of galaxies, the petals of flowers, the curves of seashells, even in the proportions of your face and body. The ancients revered this number not because they were obsessed with math, but because they recognized it as the fingerprint of creation. They saw it as the signature of the divine architect, the invisible intelligence that shapes the above and the below with the same design. Now, pause and think about what that means. A galaxy swirling millions of light years across space and a seashell on the beach, completely different in scale, in location, in substance, are both following the same mathematical pattern. That is correspondence in action. What is above, the massive cosmos, mirrors what is below, the tiny shell in your hand. Hermes didn't make this up. He noticed it, and nature confirms it every single day. Let's go deeper. Look at your lungs. Billions of tiny airways branching again and again into smaller and smaller passages until they end in microscopic sacs. Now compare that to the branches of a tree. The trunk splits into limbs, the limbs split into smaller branches, and so on until they end in leaves. Different materials, different scales, but the same branching pattern. Why? Because the same invisible principle governs both. The lungs breathe in oxygen. The tree breathes in carbon dioxide. Both are part of the same cycle. They mirror each other. And your brain, this one is almost spooky. Neuroscientists have taken images of neural networks in your brain, and when you compare them to images of galaxies captured by telescopes, the resemblance is striking. Both look like vast webs of interconnected nodes. Your brain contains billions of neurons forming networks of thought, while the universe contains billions of galaxies forming networks of stars. As above, so below, your mind is a miniature universe, and the universe is a colossal mind. When you begin to see these patterns, life stops feeling random. The chaos reveals its hidden order. The ancients knew this, but instead of using microscopes or satellites, they used myth, symbol, and metaphor to point to the same truth. That's why sacred geometry became central in so many traditions. The flower of life, the spiral, the tree, these weren't just pretty designs. They were attempts to capture the invisible architecture of reality. Now, here's where this hits home. If nature is constantly reflecting correspondence, that means your life isn't exempt. Just as the spiral of a galaxy is reflected in a shell, your inner patterns are reflected in your outer world. If a storm branches like a tree and your neurons mirror galaxies, then your inner above and your outer below are locked in the same dance. It's not philosophy, it's mechanics. Think of how rivers carve paths through the land. They don't flow in straight lines. They meander, branch, curve. Your life moves the same way. Rarely does it follow a straight path. Instead, it flows according to invisible forces, your thoughts, beliefs, and vibrations. If the river of your inner state is blocked by fear or doubt, the outer flow of your life mirrors that blockage. If it's clear and open, opportunities, relationships, and experiences flow more smoothly. This is why ignoring nature is so dangerous. We've become disconnected from the patterns that used to be obvious to our ancestors. They watched the stars, noticed the seasons, honored the cycles of planting and harvesting. Their rituals were designed to align with natural rhythms because they understood the law. Harmony with nature meant harmony with life. But today, most of us live surrounded by artificial distractions, screens, noise, concrete, forgetting that the code is still humming silently in the background. Here's the part that might sting. You've probably seen this code thousands of times, but never really looked. You've seen the spiral in sunflower seeds, the fractal in broccoli, the symmetry of a snowflake. You've seen lightning mimic a tree, rivers mimic veins, clouds mimic smoke. The universe has been shouting, as above, so below all along. But caught up in survival, in bills, in routines, we stopped listening. And yet, the code is patient. It doesn't need belief. It doesn't need attention. It simply is. The only question is whether you'll notice it and consciously align with it, or ignore it and feel like life is just chaos. But let's not stop at all. Let's ask, what does this mean for you personally? Because seeing spirals and shells is beautiful, but the real transformation comes when you realize your own body, mind, and experiences follow the same correspondence. Consider this. Your DNA is a spiral, a double helix. The same spiral that shapes galaxies also shapes your genetic blueprint, which means the very code of your body follows the same universal law. That's how deep correspondence goes. It's not abstract. It's etched into your biology. And when you look at emotions, the same pattern holds. Ever felt how one tiny thought of worry spirals into a storm of anxiety? Or how one spark of joy branches out into a whole day of synchronicities? That's fractal emotion. Small vibrations expanding outward, mirroring the same branching and spiraling you see in nature. Now here's the hidden key. If the universe is patterned and ordered, then your life isn't random either. There is structure beneath the surface, even when it feels like chaos. And if nature flows effortlessly with the code, what about you? The difference is choice. Trees don't resist their patterns. Stars don't resist their spirals. Rivers don't resist their flow. But humans do. We have free will. And with that comes the power and the challenge of either aligning with the universal order or fighting against it. This is why so many people feel disconnected. Nature expresses the law automatically. We, on the other hand, can block it. While a flower unfolds in perfect correspondence, we tighten with fear, doubt, self-judgment, and resistance. That's what pulls us out of harmony. But here's the empowering part. If correspondence is universal, then all it takes to realign is awareness. You don't have to invent a new law. You just have to stop resisting the one that already exists. By observing nature, you're reminded of your own design. You're reminded that the same order shaping galaxies is shaping you. So the question becomes, what's happening inside you right now that reality is mirroring outside? If you're seeing chaos, maybe it's because the above, your thoughts and emotions, are scattered. If you're seeing harmony, maybe it's because you've unconsciously aligned with the code. Either way, the law is operating, and nature is the greatest teacher of all. And that's where our journey now turns inward. Because while seashells and galaxies prove the law exists, the most immediate proof is within you. Your mind and heart are emitting frequencies every second. Those frequencies shape the below of your reality. The next step is to uncover how your inner state, the true above, creates the life you're living today. If you've been following so far, you already see the outline of something profound. The Emerald Tablet gave us the phrase, as above, so below. Ancient cultures across the globe confirmed it in their own words. And nature itself demonstrates the principle with spirals, fractals, and repeating patterns that show us correspondence at work. But now the spotlight turns to the most intimate place of all, inside you. Because here's the hidden truth. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, all of them are frequencies. And those frequencies are the real, above, shaping the below of your daily life. Most people assume life happens to them. They think chance, luck, or outside forces decide the course of events. But if you look deeper, you'll see something startling. Reality is responding to your vibration all the time. Your inner state acts like a transmitter, constantly sending signals into the field of life, and the world around you responds accordingly. This is not metaphor. It's mechanics. Let's break it down. Imagine you want peace. You say it. You even pray for it. But inside, your mind is racing with anxiety. Your body is tense. Your emotions are unsettled. Which signal do you think the universe receives? Not the words, not the surface desire. It receives the vibration. And what comes back to you is more situations that match anxiety. Why? Because that's the dominant frequency you're broadcasting. Or let's say you want abundance. You watch motivational videos, you repeat affirmations, you picture the lifestyle you dream of. But deep down, there's a whisper, I don't deserve it. It never works for me. Money is scarce. That inner whisper carries more weight than the loud affirmations. The frequency of lack overpowers the surface-level desire, and the below, your external life, mirrors it faithfully. That's the brutal honesty of this law. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are vibrating. Now, here's the subtle part. Vibration isn't just thoughts. If it were, positive thinking would solve everything. But you know from experience that it doesn't. Vibration is the sum of thought, emotion, and action aligned together. Picture it like an electrical circuit. Thought is the spark, emotion is the current, and action is the grounding wire. Only when all three connect does the circuit complete and the energy flows. If one is missing or misaligned, the current weakens or scatters. This explains why so many people feel stuck. They think positively but act out of fear. Or they feel inspired but sabotage themselves with self-doubt. Or they take bold action but their emotions are heavy with resentment. The triad is broken. The vibration is incoherent. And reality reflects the inconsistency back. That's why results come in fits and starts, why miracles happen but don't last, why progress feels fragile. But let's go further. Imagine you could observe your daily vibration like a scientist observing data. You'd see patterns. You'd notice that every time you start the day scrolling through negativity on your phone, your mood sinks, your emotions ripple, and the rest of the day follows. Or that when you start with gratitude, your mind, emotions, and actions align more smoothly. You'd see that your life is not random. It's a mirror reflecting your dominant frequency. And here's something many people never stop to ask. What's my frequency right now? Not what I wish I were feeling, not what I say I want, but what am I actually vibrating in this very moment? Because that's the frequency the universe hears. If you want love, but carry fear of rejection, the mirror shows rejection. If you want confidence, but carry shame, the mirror shows situations that trigger shame. The outer world is always echoing the inner. This brings us to one of the greatest misconceptions of modern spirituality, the obsession with controlling thoughts. People panic when they think a negative thought, as if the universe is instantly going to punish them. But that's not how vibration works. Thoughts are like clouds. They come and go. A passing storm doesn't define the climate. What matters is what you feed. If you grab onto a fearful thought, repeat it, fuel it with emotion, and act from it, then yes, it becomes your dominant frequency. But if you let it pass, observe it without attachment, it dissolves. So the real question isn't, how do I never think negatively? The real question is, what thoughts, emotions, and actions do I consistently align with? That consistent alignment is what builds your vibration, like tuning a musical instrument not once, but daily. And here's the catch. Most people never tune. They wake up and instantly dive into stress, hurry, obligations, notifications. Their vibration starts scattered, and it stays scattered all day. They don't realize that the first few minutes after waking and the last few minutes before sleep are portals. Times when the veil between conscious and unconscious is thinner, when your vibration imprints more deeply. Start your day in chaos, and the chaos carries through. End your day in fear, and that fear vibrates through your sleep. That's why so many people wake up exhausted even after 8 hours of rest. Their body rested, but their vibration never did. Now, think about how different this could look. Imagine waking up in silence, taking one deep breath, feeling gratitude even before anything happens. That single choice plants a different frequency into your field. Imagine go to bed, not replaying frustrations, but whispering one word: peace, abundance, love, and letting that be the last vibration you carry into sleep. That alone changes everything. Because vibration isn't about intensity once in a while. It's about consistency. But here's the deeper challenge. Vibration doesn't stay high just because you want it to. Life will test it. Traffic jams, arguments, bills, disappointments, they all come. and each one is a mirror showing you where your vibration still falters. This is why Hermes Code is so practical. Every frustrating situation isn't an attack, it's feedback. Life is saying, this is the frequency you're carrying. Do you want to keep it? Or do you want to shift it? That's the turning point. Most people fight the mirror. They argue with reality. They blame others, complain, resist. But the law doesn't change. The mirror keeps reflecting. The only way to shift the reflection is to shift the vibration. So how do you shift? Not by pretending everything's fine. Not by chanting words you don't feel, but by creating coherence. Thought, emotion, and action moving in the same direction. If you want love, think love, feel love, act with love. If you want abundance, think abundance, feel gratitude for what you already have, and act boldly like someone who trusts in flow. If you want peace, think peace, breathe peace, respond with peace even in conflict. Simple? Yes. Easy? No. Because the hardest moment to vibrate love is when you feel hurt. The hardest moment to vibrate abundance is when your bank account is empty. The hardest moment to vibrate peace is when the world is loud with chaos. And yet, that's when it matters most. That's when miracles are born. Because vibration is not tested in the calm. It's tested in the storm. And if you can hold alignment, even for a moment in the storm, you begin to rewrite the pattern. The above shifts, and soon the below must follow. This is what the ancients knew and what modern science is beginning to confirm. Your body emits electromagnetic fields measurable around your heart and brain. Your emotions literally change the frequency of those fields. The invisible above radiates and the below responds. You are a transmitter in a cosmic field, and your reality is your broadcast reflected back. Now, pause and breathe this in. If reality is a mirror of your vibration, then your power is far greater than you've been told. You are not a victim of random chance. You are a co-creator. The question isn't, is this law working? The question is, what am I vibrating right now? And here's where we transition to the next stage. Because knowing this law is one thing. But when life drags you into old patterns, when fear and doubt keep looping, how do you reset? How do you stop repeating cycles and start fresh? Hermes gave us a clue: silence. A return to the zero state. A place where vibration clears, the mirror wipes clean, and creation can begin again. We've arrived at one of the most overlooked parts of Hermes' teaching, the reset. Because if everything in your life is reflecting your vibration, the obvious question becomes, what do you do when that vibration gets stuck in old patterns? What if you keep projecting the same fears, the same doubts, the same scarcity over and over again? This is where Thoth's hidden wisdom speaks louder than ever. He knew there had to be a way to stop the cycle, to wipe the slate clean, to reset your field so you could begin again. The ancients called it silence, the zero state. Now, don't mistake this silence for simple quiet. It's not just turning off your phone or sitting in a quiet room. True silence is an inner state where the constant chatter of thought, the swirl of emotion, and the compulsive drive of action all pause. It's a return to neutral. Imagine hitting a reset button on an instrument before tuning it. That's what the zero state does. It resets your vibration so you're no longer trapped in the loops of yesterday. Here's the thing about vibration. It tends to repeat itself. If you wake up stressed and carry that stress into your day, your vibration creates situations that mirror stress. Those situations then reinforce the stress, and the loop continues. It's like spinning a wheel. Once it's in motion, it keeps going unless you deliberately stop it. The zero state is how you stop the wheel. It's how you step out of the loop and start fresh. But how do you access this state? The answer is deceptively simple. You stop resisting. You stop trying to control. You stop fighting your thoughts, your emotions, your circumstances. You simply observe. You breathe. You let everything be as it is without judgment. For a moment, you withdraw from the storm and step into the eye of it, where everything is still. This might sound too simple, almost naive, but anyone who's experienced true inner silence knows its power. When the noise fades, when the mind stops grasping, something remarkable happens. The vibration you've been feeding loses its grip. Fear dissolves. Anger softens. Anxiety loosens. Not because you fought them, but because you stopped giving them fuel. The zero state doesn't destroy old vibrations. It lets them dissolve on their own. Think of it this way. Imagine you're holding a glass of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the water stays cloudy. But if you set it down and let it be still, the mud sinks and the water clears. That's what silence does to your vibration. It settles the mud of old patterns and reveals clarity beneath. And here's the hidden gem. This zero state is available to you anytime. Right now, even as you listen, you could close your eyes, take a single conscious breath, and step into it. You don't need rituals. You don't need special equipment. You don't need years of training. The doorway is always open. The challenge isn't access. The challenge is remembering to use it. Now, let's be clear. Zero state is not permanent. You can't live there forever. It's a portal, not a destination. You enter it to reset, to wipe clean, to stop the old vibration. Then, once you've returned to silence, the next vibration you emit is amplified. It's like planting a seed in fresh soil. That's why the ancients were so careful about what they did after silence. They knew the first word, the first thought, the first action that emerged from the zero state carried tremendous creative power. But why does this matter so much? Because most people never reset. They carry yesterday's fears into today. They fall asleep angry, wake up anxious, and wonder why their life feels like an endless loop. They don't realize they have the power to stop the cycle anytime. That's why Hermes kept the knowledge hidden. Not because he wanted to deny it, but because he knew few would be ready to truly practice it. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself repeating the same situation in life? The same type of relationship conflict, the same financial struggle, the same health challenge? It feels like fate, like bad luck, but it's not. It's a vibrational loop. And until you reset it, the reflection won't change. The zero state is your way out. It's not about fixing everything at once. It's about stepping into the present moment where the past loses its grip and the future hasn't yet formed. In that space, you are free. Free to choose a new vibration. Free to plant a new seed. Free to rewrite the reflection. Let's get practical for a moment. How do you enter this silence in daily life? One way is breath. Not forced, not manipulated, just observed. Sit, close your eyes, and watch your breath like you'd watch waves on the shore. Thoughts will come. Emotions will rise. Don't chase them. Don't fight them. Let them pass like clouds across the sky. In a few minutes, you'll notice the space between thoughts growing wider. That space is the zero state. Another way is presence. Pick one simple act. Washing your hands, drinking water, feeling your heartbeat. Do it with total awareness. Not thinking about the past, not worrying about the future, just being here. This simple act collapses the mental noise and brings you into silence. And yet, here's the paradox. Silence isn't empty. It's full of potential, full of possibility. In the zero state, you're not nothing. You're everything waiting to emerge. That's why mystics across cultures revered silence. Not because it was a void, but because it was the womb of creation. Now imagine this. You wake up in the morning, instead of grabbing your phone, you sit in silence for 2 minutes. You let the old vibrations settle. You return in neutral. From that place, you choose your first thought, your first word, your first feeling of the day. You plant a seed of peace, abundance, gratitude, or love. Then you carry that seed into your actions. Can you see how much more powerful your day would be? And at night, before sleep, you do the same. Instead of replaying arguments or worries, you reset. You enter silence. You plant one final seed, peace, trust, joy, and carry it into sleep. Your field vibrates it all night, and you wake aligned instead of drained. That's the hidden portal Thoth was pointing to. The moments when silence resets your vibration and amplifies your next choice. Miss them, and you repeat the old loops. Use them, and you begin to consciously create. So here's the question. If you had the power to reset your vibration right now, what would you choose to plant next? What would be the first word, the first thought, the first frequency you'd send into the field? Because in the zero state, that choice has the power to change everything. And this is where the next layer of Hermes code unfolds. Because silence is only half the secret. After silence comes sound. After the void comes the word. Creation doesn't stay empty, it vibrates into form. And that's where we go next. After silence comes sound. After the void, the vibration. The ancients understood something we've almost completely forgotten. The first thing to emerge from the zero state is not thought, not action. It is sound. A word. A frequency. And that frequency shapes everything that follows. Hermes, Thoth, the sages of India, the mystics of Israel, all of them left behind clues pointing to the same truth. Sound is creation. Think about how many traditions begin with this. In the Judeo-Christian scriptures, the book of Genesis doesn't say, "In the beginning was action." It says, "In the beginning was the Word." The world wasn't built with bricks, it was spoken into being. In Egypt, words of power, Heka, were considered magical not because they were superstitious, but because the ancients knew the vibration of sound aligned human intention with cosmic forces. In India, the primordial syllable Om is not just a chant. It's considered the sound of creation itself, the vibration from which the universe unfolds. So here's the hidden law. After you reset into silence, the first sound you make becomes the seed of your new reality. The ancients guarded this because they knew the danger of careless words. Words aren't just communication. They are vibrational commands. Every "I can't," every "I'm not good enough," every "this always happens to me" is not just a complaint. It's a spell, a declaration to the universe. And the mirror reflects it back. Now pause and notice how often people curse their own lives without realizing it. I never catch a break. I'm always unlucky. Nothing ever changes. These aren't harmless phrases. They are frequencies planting seeds in the fertile soil of the zero state. And the universe, impartial as a mirror, reflects them faithfully. The tragedy is not that people don't know the law. The tragedy is that they use it unconsciously against themselves. But the same law that can trap, you can also free you. Because just as careless words reinforce old vibrations, intentional words spoken with awareness can reprogram your field. This is why mantras, affirmations, chants, prayers exist in every culture. Not as empty rituals, but as vibrational tools. When you speak a word of power with presence, your voice carries a frequency that reshapes your inner state and broadcasts into the field around you. Think of it this way. Silence is the blank canvas. Sound is the first stroke of paint. Whatever word you speak after silence imprints deeply. That's why it matters so much what you say first in the morning and last before bed. If your first word is frustration, you set the tone for the day. If your last word is gratitude, you set the tone for the night. The ancients knew this. They didn't waste their first or final words. They spoke with intention. Let's get practical. Try this. After entering the zero state, choose one word that represents the reality you want to create. Not a sentence, not a complicated phrase, just one word. Love, peace, abundance, healing. Say it out loud. Let it resonate in your chest, your throat, your whole being. Repeat it until the word stops being external sound and becomes internal vibration. That's when it anchors into your field. That's when, as above, so below, begins to take shape in your own life. But there's another layer here. It's not enough to do this once in a while. The universe doesn't respond to occasional inspiration. It responds to consistent frequency. Just as nature works in cycles, the rising sun, the turning seasons, the heartbeat, the inhale and exhale, you must create cycles of vibration in your daily life. Consistency builds coherence. This is where most people fall short. They get inspired, they practice once or twice, they feel good for a day, and then they stop. They expect one word to rewrite years of vibration. But creation doesn't work that way. It's not the intensity of a single moment. It's the rhythm of repetition that changes reality. Just like one workout won't change your body, one word won't change your life. But repetition will. Daily alignment will. That's how the ancients lived. not with occasional inspiration, but with disciplined vibrational practice. And here's the key. It doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need hours of chanting. A single conscious word, spoken daily with presence, carries more power than 1,000 words spoken carelessly. The secret isn't quantity, it's coherence. Thought, emotion, and action align with the vibration of the word you choose. Imagine this in action. You wake up, enter silence, speak the word abundance. Then you feel gratitude for what you already have. Then you act boldly, as someone who trusts life's flow. Thought, emotion, action aligned. That coherence turns the word into reality. And over time, reality has no choice but to mirror it. Now let's talk about resilience. Because the real test isn't how well you vibrate when life is easy. It's how you hold vibration when life challenges you. Anyone can speak words of peace in a quiet moment. The true practice is speaking peace when chaos swirls around you. Anyone can speak abundance when money flows easily. The true test is affirming abundance when the bills pile high. That's when a mirror challenges you. That's when your vibration either collapses back into old patterns or holds steady and transforms reality. This is why Thoth didn't promise instant miracles. He offered code, a way of living, a science of vibration, not as superstition, not as philosophy, but as practice, daily, consistent, disciplined practice. Because the universe is listening every moment, not just during rituals. Every word you speak, every thought you feed, every emotion you sustain, every action you take, they're all programming the above that reflects into the below. So the final step in living as above, so below, is not just accessing silence, not just speaking words of power. It's turning this into a lifestyle. Training yourself to notice when you drift, resetting with silence, reprogramming with sound, and aligning thought, emotion, and action again and again. Like tuning an instrument, not once but daily. Because coherence isn't achieved by accident. It's cultivated. And here's the most empowering truth of all. The law never stops working. The mirror never stops reflecting. Whether you're conscious of it or not, you are always creating. The choice is whether you create unconsciously, letting old vibrations dictate your life, or whether you create consciously, aligning with the universal code. That's the hidden truth Thoth tried to warn humanity about. Once you see it, you can't unknow it. Once you live it, your reality changes because it has to. The mirror has no choice. So, now that you've walked this path, through the tablet, through cultures, through nature, through your own vibration, through silence, through sound, the final question is simple but life-changing. What vibration will you choose from here on out? Because the moment you choose and repeat and align, the universe will respond. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, you've come with me on a long journey, from the mysterious words carved into the emerald tablet, to the echoes of the same law in India, Greece, Israel, and Egypt, to the undeniable patterns in nature that prove correspondence is everywhere. We looked inward at the vibration of your thoughts, emotions, and actions. We paused in silence at the zero state, and we spoke the first word of creation. And now, here you are, standing at the threshold Hermes and Thoth always pointed to, the realization that you're not a victim of chance. You are a co-creator of reality itself. So let's bring this down to you, here and now. Look around at your life. Every relationship, every challenge, every opportunity, every detail, it's all a mirror. And that mirror is not here to punish you. It's here to teach you, to show you the vibration you've been broadcasting. Some reflections you'll want to keep, others you'll want to change. But the truth is, you now hold the key. You know how to reset, how to realign, how to choose differently. That's the gift of the code. And here's the liberating part. You don't need perfection. You don't need to control every thought or force every feeling. All you need is awareness and consistency. Notice when you drift. Pause. Breathe. Reset. Speak your word. Align your actions. Over and over again. Each time you do, you strengthen the new vibration. Each time you do, the mirror shifts. This is what Thoth tried to warn humanity about. That once you understand this principle, You no longer need luck or gurus or external formulas. You don't wait for life to change. You create the change from the inside out. The above of your vibration reshapes the below of your reality. That's the hidden truth. That's the code. So now, ask yourself, what's the first vibration you want to plant tonight? What word will you carry into your sleep, into your morning, into your next action? Because the moment you choose, the mirror listens. And when it listens, it reflects. Remember, as above, so below, as within, so without. The law is always working. The choice is always yours.